The morning sun cast long shadows across the grounds of Windsor Castle as 9-year-old Princess Charlotte walked through the royal gardens with her governess. She loved these quiet moments before the castle came alive with its daily activities. Charlotte had always been different from other royal children. While her brothers preferred their video games and sports, she found herself drawn to the people who worked tirelessly behind the scenes to keep their family safe and comfortable. As they rounded the corner near the East Terrace, Charlotte noticed something unusual. Guardsman James Mitchell, one of her favorite royal guards, was standing at his post, but something seemed wrong. His usually perfect posture was slightly bent, and she could see beads of sweat on his forehead despite the cool morning air. James had been protecting her family for 3 years, and Charlotte had grown fond of his kind eyes and gentle smile whenever no one else was looking. "Miss Charlotte, we should head back for your mathematics lesson," her governess suggested, but Charlotte's attention remained fixed on the guard. She had learned to read people's faces from watching her grandfather, King Charles, during his meetings. James was clearly unwell, but he continued to stand at attention, unwilling to abandon his duty. The young princess made a decision that would set in motion a series of events that would shake the very foundations of royal protocol. She walked directly toward James, ignoring her governess's calls to return. As she approached, she could see that his hands were trembling slightly, and his breathing seemed labored. James tried to maintain his stoic expression, but Charlotte could see the pain in his eyes. "Good morning, James," she said softly, using his first name as she always did when they were alone. "Are you feeling all right today?" The guard's eyes widened slightly at her direct question. Royal protocol dictated that guards should never engage in personal conversation with members of the royal family while on duty. But Charlotte had never been one to follow such rigid rules when someone needed help. James cleared his throat carefully. "Your Royal Highness, I am perfectly fine, thank you for your concern." But Charlotte could hear the strain in his voice. She had watched her father, Prince William, interact with people from all walks of life. And she had learned that sometimes the most important thing was simply to show genuine care for others, regardless of their position or status. The governess finally caught up to them, looking flustered. "Princess Charlotte, you must come along immediately. We cannot be late for your lessons." But Charlotte stood her ground, something that surprised even herself. She had always been obedient, but something about James's condition made her feel protective and determined. "I think James needs to sit down," Charlotte announced, her young voice carrying an authority that seemed beyond her years. "He doesn't look well at all." The governess looked between the princess and the guard, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Royal guards were trained to never show weakness or leave their posts except in the most extreme circumstances. James attempted to reassure them both. "I assure you, Your Highness, I am quite capable of continuing my duties. There is no need for concern." But as he spoke, Charlotte noticed him swaying slightly on his feet. Her instincts, inherited from generations of royals who had learned to make quick decisions under pressure, kicked in. What happened next would be talked about in royal circles for years to come. Princess Charlotte stepped closer to James and, in a voice that carried both compassion and determination, said, "I'm going to help you, and I don't care what anyone says about it." Her governess gasped at the unprecedented breach of protocol. But Charlotte had made up her mind. The 9-year-old princess had no idea that her act of kindness toward a royal guard would soon put her in direct conflict with Queen Camilla, whose strict adherence to royal protocol and traditional hierarchy would clash dramatically with Charlotte's compassionate instincts. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test the very nature of what it meant to be royal in the modern age. Charlotte's determination to help James set off a chain reaction that no one could have anticipated. Ignoring her governess's protests and the shocked stares of passing staff members, the young princess gently took James by the arm and guided him toward a nearby stone bench. Her small hand felt the trembling in his muscles, confirming her suspicions that something was seriously wrong. "Please sit down, James," she said firmly but kindly. "You're not well, and I won't let you collapse while trying to do your job." The guard's training told him to refuse, to maintain his post at all costs, but the genuine concern in Charlotte's voice and the obvious deterioration of his condition made resistance impossible. As James reluctantly sat down, Charlotte turned to her governess with an expression that reminded everyone present that she was indeed a member of the royal family. "Please call for the palace doctor immediately," she instructed. And bring James some water and perhaps something to eat. I think his blood sugar might be low. Her governess, Miss Patricia Henley, had served the royal family for 15 years and had never encountered such a situation. Your Royal Highness, I really think we should let the proper authorities handle this matter. Perhaps we should inform the head of security or the palace staff coordinator. But Charlotte shook her head decisively. No, we help him now. That's what decent people do when someone needs help. Her words carried a wisdom that seemed far beyond her 9 years, echoing the values that her parents had instilled in her about treating all people with dignity and respect. As Miss Henley hurried away to fetch help, Charlotte sat beside James on the bench, completely disregarding the fact that royal protocol would never permit such informality. The guard tried to object, but Charlotte simply smiled at him with the same warmth her mother, Catherine, was famous for showing to people from all backgrounds. My mom always says that taking care of people is the most important job anyone can have, Charlotte told him. She says that's what being royal really means, not the fancy titles or the big houses, but making sure people are okay. James felt his eyes welling up with tears, moved by the young princess's genuine compassion and maturity. Within minutes, the peaceful garden scene had transformed into something resembling organized chaos. The palace doctor arrived, along with several security personnel who seemed unsure how to handle a situation where a member of the royal family was directly involving herself in what they considered operational matters. Dr. Margaret Thompson, the palace physician, quickly assessed James's condition and confirmed Charlotte's instincts. He's experiencing symptoms of severe hypoglycemia, she explained to Charlotte, who listened intently. His blood sugar has dropped dangerously low, likely due to not eating properly while maintaining his long shifts. You were absolutely right to insist he sit down, Your Highness. Charlotte felt a surge of pride mixed with concern. Will he be okay? Can we make sure this doesn't happen to any of the other guards? Her questions revealed a mind already thinking about systematic solutions rather than just the immediate problem. As Dr. Thompson began treating James, word of the incident spread rapidly through the palace's communication networks. Staff members whispered about the young princess who had broken protocol to help a guard, and opinions were sharply divided. Some admired her compassion and quick thinking, while others worried about the precedent being set. The news reached the private offices of Queen Camilla within the hour, delivered by her personal secretary along with the morning briefings. Camilla's reaction was immediate and intense. Having spent years learning and adapting to the intricate rules and traditions of royal life, she viewed Charlotte's actions as a dangerous deviation from established order. This is completely unacceptable, Camilla stated firmly to her secretary. While the child's intentions may be commendable, she cannot be permitted to interfere with palace operations or breach protocol in such a dramatic fashion. The royal family must maintain appropriate boundaries with staff members at all times. Her secretary nodded carefully. Shall I arrange for someone to speak with the princess's governess about reinforcing proper behavioral expectations? But Camilla had already decided on a more direct approach. She believed that Charlotte needed to understand the serious implications of her actions and the importance of maintaining royal dignity and distance. Meanwhile, back in the garden, Charlotte remained with James until she was certain he was feeling better. She had managed to learn more about his life in 30 minutes than most royals learned about their staff in years. James told her about his 2 young children and how much his job meant to his family's security and future. I want to make sure all the guards know they can take breaks when they need them, Charlotte announced to Dr. Thompson. No one should have to choose between doing their job and taking care of their health. The doctor smiled at the princess's mature perspective but also felt a growing concern about the political implications of such statements. The stage was being set for a confrontation that would pit Charlotte's natural compassion against centuries of royal tradition, with Queen Camilla determined to teach the young princess a lesson about the proper boundaries of royal behavior. The confrontation came sooner than anyone expected. As Charlotte was helping James back to his feet, feeling proud that she had made a real difference in someone's day, the clicking of expensive heels on stone announced Queen Camilla's arrival. The queen consort approached with her characteristic measured pace, her expression revealing nothing but her eyes showing clear disapproval. Princess Charlotte, Camilla's voice carried the weight of royal authority. I need to speak with you immediately. The tone was polite but unmistakably commanding, causing everyone in the immediate vicinity to step back respectfully. James attempted to stand at attention despite his weakened condition, but Charlotte gently pressed his shoulder to keep him seated. "I'm still making sure James is okay," Charlotte replied, her voice steady but showing the first signs of nervousness. She had never directly challenged Queen Camilla before, and she could sense the tension building around them like a storm cloud gathering overhead. Camilla's eyebrows rose slightly at what she perceived as defiance. "The palace medical staff can handle Guardsman Mitchell's care. You have lessons to attend, and we need to discuss appropriate behavior for a member of the royal family." Her words were carefully chosen to remind Charlotte of her position and obligations, but Charlotte surprised everyone, including herself, by standing her ground. James needed help right now, not later. "I couldn't just walk away when I could see he was sick." Her voice grew stronger with each word, fueled by the conviction that she had done the right thing. The garden had become uncomfortably quiet, with staff members and security personnel trying to appear busy, while secretly watching the unprecedented exchange between the young princess and the queen. "Consort." Dr. Thompson continued her work with James but kept glancing nervously at the developing confrontation. "Your intentions are admirable, Charlotte," Camilla said, her voice taking on the tone she used when delivering important lessons. "But there are proper channels for handling such situations. Royal family members cannot simply insert themselves into operational matters without considering the broader implications." Charlotte looked confused and frustrated. "What implications?" "A person needed help, so I helped them. Isn't that what we're supposed to do?" Her innocent question cut to the heart of a much deeper debate about the role of modern royalty and their relationship with those who serve them. Camilla felt the weight of centuries of royal tradition behind her words. "We maintain appropriate boundaries to ensure the smooth functioning of the palace and to preserve the dignity of the crown. When you involve yourself so directly in staff matters, it disrupts established protocols and creates confusion about roles and responsibilities." "But James could have collapsed," Charlotte protested, her young voice rising with emotion. "He was sweating and shaking, and he could barely stand up. Was I supposed to just ignore that because of some rule about boundaries?" Her passion was evident, and several staff members found themselves nodding in agreement despite themselves. The queen consort recognized that she was dealing with a child who possessed both strong moral convictions and the stubbornness that seemed to run in the Wales family line. "Charlotte, rules and protocols exist for important reasons. They have been developed over centuries to ensure that everyone knows their role and that the royal family can function effectively." "Then maybe some of those rules need to change," Charlotte said quietly, but her words carried clearly in the morning air. The statement sent a visible shock through the assembled group. Even Dr. Thompson paused in her work, surprised by the boldness of the young princess's declaration. Camilla's composure wavered for just a moment. She had spent years adapting to royal life, learning to navigate its complex traditions and expectations. The idea that a 9-year-old would suggest changing fundamental protocols struck her as both naive and potentially dangerous to the stability of the institution. "Young lady, you are not in a position to determine which royal tradition should be changed," Camilla said firmly. "These protocols have served the monarchy well for generations, and they deserve your respect, not your criticism." Her voice carried an edge that made it clear she expected immediate compliance, but Charlotte had reached a point where backing down felt like betraying James and everything her parents had taught her about treating people fairly. "I respect the monarchy," she said carefully, "but I respect people more. And if the rules say I can't help someone who's sick, then those rules are wrong." The bold statement created a moment of absolute silence in the garden. Staff members exchanged worried glances, uncertain about how to respond to such an unprecedented situation. James, despite his weakened condition, looked at the young princess with a mixture of gratitude and concern for what her defense of him might cost her. Queen Camilla realized that this conversation had moved far beyond a simple disciplinary matter. She was facing a fundamental challenge to royal protocol from someone who, despite her age, carried significant influence as a direct heir to the throne. The resolution of this conflict would set important precedents for how the royal family operated in the modern world. The tension in the garden reached a breaking point as Queen Camilla realized that gentle persuasion was not going to work with Charlotte. The young princess had inherited more than just her grandmother Diana's compassionate nature. She had also inherited the Wales family's determination when they believed they were fighting for something important. Princess Charlotte, Camilla said, her voice taking on a more authoritative tone. You will come with me immediately to discuss this matter privately. Guardsman Mitchell is being properly cared for, and your presence is no longer required here. It was phrased as a request, but everyone present understood it was actually a command. Charlotte glanced at James, who was now sitting up straighter thanks to Dr. Thompson's treatment. The color had returned to his face, and he looked much more stable than he had earlier. She felt torn between her desire to ensure his complete recovery and her recognition that defying Queen Camilla further might have serious consequences. I want to make sure he gets home safely, Charlotte said, trying to find a compromise. And I want someone to check on all the other guards to make sure they're eating properly and taking breaks when they need them. Her requests revealed a mind that was thinking beyond the immediate situation to address systemic issues. Camilla's patience was wearing thin. Years of navigating royal politics had taught her that small challenges to authority could quickly escalate into larger problems, if not addressed decisively. Charlotte, you are 9 years old. These operational decisions are made by adults who understand the complexities involved. You cannot simply reorganize palace security procedures based on one incident. Why not if it helps people? Charlotte asked genuinely. Daddy always says that being royal means looking out for everyone, not just ourselves. How is making sure the guards are healthy any different from the charity work Mummy does? The comparison to her parents' work struck a nerve with Camilla, who had always felt the pressure of living up to the public's memory of Diana, while also trying to establish her own role within the royal family. She recognized that Charlotte was invoking values that were central to William and Catherine's approach to royal duty. Dr. Thompson, sensing the growing conflict, tried to provide a diplomatic solution. Your Royal Highness, she addressed Charlotte. Guardsman Mitchell is stable now and will be fine. Perhaps you could visit him later this afternoon after he's had proper rest and nutrition. She hoped to give Charlotte a face-saving way to step back from the confrontation, but Camilla saw this suggestion as further undermining her authority. There will be no such visit, she stated firmly. Princess Charlotte needs to understand that her role does not include personal relationships with palace staff. These boundaries exist for good reasons and must be maintained. Charlotte's eyes flashed with something that reminded everyone present that she was indeed a member of a family known for their strong personalities. James isn't just palace staff, she said, her voice rising slightly. He's a person who protects our family every day. He has children of his own and dreams and feelings. He matters just as much as anyone else. The passionate defense of James's humanity touched something deep in the hearts of the staff members who were witnessing the exchange. Many of them had worked for the royal family for years, without ever feeling truly seen or acknowledged as individuals. Rather than just servants performing functions, Camilla recognized that this conversation had moved into dangerous territory. Charlotte's words, while well-intentioned, were challenging fundamental assumptions about social hierarchy and royal protocol that had governed the monarchy for centuries. If allowed to continue unchecked, such attitudes could undermine the entire structure of royal authority. Charlotte, I'm going to say this once more, and I expect your complete cooperation, Camilla said, her voice carrying unmistakable authority. You will come with me now, and you will not continue this inappropriate involvement with palace operations. Is that understood? The moment stretched out like a held breath. Charlotte looked around at the faces surrounding her. James, whose eyes showed both gratitude and worry. Dr. Thompson, who appeared caught between admiration and concern. Her governess, who looked mortified by the entire situation. And the various staff members who were trying to appear invisible while witnessing this unprecedented confrontation. Something shifted in Charlotte's expression as she made a decision that would define her character for years to come. No, she said quietly but clearly. I understand what you're asking, but I won't pretend that helping someone who needed help was wrong. I won't apologize for caring about James, and I won't promise to ignore people who need help in the future. The simple word no fell into the garden like a stone into still water, sending ripples of shock through everyone present. Queen Camilla's face showed a mixture of surprise, anger, and something that might have been grudging respect for the young princess's courage. James attempted to stand, wanting to somehow diffuse the situation that had developed around his medical episode. "Your Majesty, Your Royal Highness," he said weakly. "Please don't let my situation cause any problems. I'm feeling much better now, and I'm grateful for everyone's help." But Charlotte turned to him with a smile that showed wisdom beyond her years. "James, you don't need to apologize for being human, and neither do I." Her words carried a finality that made it clear she had no intention of backing down from her position, regardless of the consequences. The aftermath of Charlotte's defiant no created a silence so profound that even the usual sounds of palace life seemed to pause. Queen Camilla stood frozen for a moment, clearly struggling to process the reality that a 9-year-old had just openly refused her direct command in front of palace staff. The implications of this moment would ripple through royal circles for months to come. "I see," Camilla said finally, her voice carefully controlled but carrying an undercurrent of steel. "Very well, Princess Charlotte. If you choose to prioritize your personal feelings over royal protocol, then you must also be prepared to accept the consequences of that choice." The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Charlotte felt her heart racing, but she maintained her composure with a grace that reminded everyone present of her royal lineage. "What consequences?" she asked, genuine curiosity mixing with defiance in her voice. "For helping someone who needed help? For treating a person with kindness and respect?" The question hung in the air, challenging not just Queen Camilla but the entire system of royal hierarchy that had governed palace life for generations. Several staff members found themselves nodding almost imperceptibly, moved by the young princess's unwavering commitment to her principles. Camilla realized that any punishment she might impose on Charlotte would now be viewed through the lens of this confrontation. If she restricted Charlotte's activities or imposed harsh discipline, it would appear as though she was punishing compassion and basic human decency. Yet allowing Charlotte's defiance to go unaddressed would set a dangerous precedent. "The consequences," Camilla said carefully, "are that your behavior today will be reported to your parents, along with my recommendation that you receive additional instruction in royal protocol and appropriate boundaries. You clearly need to better understand your role and responsibilities." Charlotte's eyes lit up at the mention of her parents. "Good," she said with surprising confidence. "I want them to know what happened. I want them to know that I helped James when he was sick, and that I stood up for what I believe is right." Her eagerness to have her parents hear about the incident suggested she was confident they would support her actions. This response clearly caught Queen Camilla off guard. She had expected the threat of parental involvement to chasten Charlotte, not energize her. The realization that Charlotte was confident in her parents' likely reaction added another layer of complexity to the situation. Dr. Thompson, who had been quietly observing while continuing to monitor James's condition, decided to interject diplomatically. "If I may," she said respectfully, "Princess Charlotte's quick recognition of Guardsman Mitchell's medical distress potentially prevented a much more serious incident. Her actions, while unconventional, were medically sound and possibly life-saving." The doctor's professional assessment lent credibility to Charlotte's position and created an uncomfortable moment for Queen Camilla. How could she argue against actions that a medical professional had just described as potentially life-saving? James, who had been listening to the entire exchange with growing discomfort, finally found the strength to speak up. "Your Majesty," he addressed Queen Camilla directly. "If I may respectfully say so, Princess Charlotte's actions today embodied the very best qualities of the royal family. Her compassion and quick thinking are exactly the kind of leadership this country needs." The guard's words carried special weight, because they came from someone who had dedicated his career to protecting the royal family. His endorsement of Charlotte's behavior as representing the very best qualities of royalty directly challenged Camilla's characterization of the same actions as inappropriate breaches of protocol. Charlotte looked around at the faces surrounding her and realized that she had inadvertently created a moment that was much bigger than just helping one sick guard. The staff members present were looking at her with expressions ranging from admiration to amazement, while Queen Camilla appeared increasingly isolated in her position. "I don't understand why being kind to people who work hard to protect us is considered bad behavior," Charlotte said, addressing her comments directly to Queen Camilla. "I don't understand why caring about someone's health and safety is somehow inappropriate for a princess." If those are the rules, then maybe the rules are what's inappropriate. Her words struck at the heart of a fundamental debate about the role of the monarchy in the modern world. Was the royal family meant to maintain distant dignity and rigid hierarchy, or were they supposed to embody the values of compassion and service that they publicly promoted? Queen Camilla felt the weight of tradition and her own experiences pressing down on her. She had spent years learning to navigate the complex expectations of royal life, often suppressing her own instincts in favor of established protocol. The idea that Charlotte could simply ignore these carefully maintained boundaries felt like a threat to everything she had worked to understand and uphold. "Princess Charlotte," Camilla said, making one final attempt to reassert control over the situation, "you are still a child, and there are aspects of royal responsibility that you cannot possibly understand yet. These protocols exist to protect both the royal family and the people who serve us. Your actions today, however well-intentioned, have disrupted that careful balance." But Charlotte, emboldened by the support she sensed around her and confident in her own moral convictions, responded with a question that would be remembered long after this confrontation ended. If protecting people and treating them with dignity disrupts the balance, then isn't the balance wrong? The simple question contained such profound implications that it left everyone present speechless. Even Queen Camilla found herself momentarily at a loss for words, confronted by the moral clarity of a child who had cut through centuries of tradition and protocol to reach the essential human truth at the heart of the matter. The profound silence that followed Charlotte's question was broken by the unexpected arrival of Prince William and Catherine. Word of the confrontation had reached them through the palace's informal communication network, and they had rushed to the garden to assess the situation firsthand. Their appearance changed the entire dynamic of the standoff. "What's happening here?" Prince William asked, his voice carrying both parental concern and royal authority. His eyes quickly took in the scene: Charlotte standing protectively near James, Queen Camilla's tense posture, and the crowd of staff members who were trying to look busy while obviously listening to every word. Catherine immediately went to Charlotte, placing a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Are you all right, sweetheart?" she asked, her motherly instincts overriding any concerns about protocol or hierarchy. Charlotte leaned into her mother's touch, feeling both relief and vindication at their arrival. "Charlotte has been," Queen Camilla began, but William raised his hand to stop her. He had learned from years of dealing with complex situations that it was important to understand all perspectives before making any judgments. "Let me hear from Charlotte first," he said diplomatically but firmly. "Charlotte, can you tell us what happened?" His approach demonstrated the respectful communication style that he and Catherine used with their children, treating them as individuals whose perspectives mattered. Charlotte took a deep breath and began to recount the morning's events. She spoke clearly and calmly, explaining how she had noticed James's distress, her decision to help him, and her subsequent conversation with Queen Camilla. As she spoke, her parents' expressions shifted from concern to understanding, to something that looked very much like pride. "So you saw that James was unwell and decided to help him," William summarized when she finished. "And when Queen Camilla explained that this wasn't appropriate protocol, you disagreed?" Charlotte nodded, watching her father's face carefully for signs of disappointment that never came. Catherine turned to Dr. Thompson, who had remained nearby throughout the confrontation. "Doctor, what was Guardsman Mitchell's condition?" The question showed that Catherine understood the importance of getting a complete picture before drawing conclusions. Princess Charlotte's assessment was completely accurate, Dr. Thompson replied professionally. Guardsman Mitchell was experiencing severe hypoglycemia and was in real danger of collapse. The princess's intervention was both timely and appropriate from a medical standpoint. William nodded thoughtfully, then addressed James directly. "Guardsman Mitchell, how are you feeling now?" The prince's direct engagement with the guard demonstrated the very values that Charlotte had been defending, treating all people with dignity and respect regardless of their position. "Much better, sir, thank you," James replied. "I want to express my gratitude to Princess Charlotte for her kindness and quick thinking. Her actions today represent the very best of what the royal family stands for, in my opinion." Queen Camilla stepped forward, clearly feeling the need to explain her position before it became further misunderstood. "William, while I don't question Charlotte's good intentions, we must consider the broader implications of allowing such breaches of protocol. There are established procedures for handling these situations that exist for important reasons. William listened respectfully to Camilla's concerns, then asked a question that surprised everyone present. What are those reasons exactly? Help me understand why Charlotte helping someone who was clearly in medical distress would be problematic. The question forced Camilla to articulate her position more specifically than she had been willing to do earlier. The royal family must maintain appropriate boundaries with staff to ensure clear lines of authority and to prevent the kind of personal relationships that could compromise security or create favoritism. I see, William said thoughtfully. And do you believe that Charlotte's actions today created any of those problems? His tone was genuinely curious rather than confrontational. But the question clearly put Camilla in a difficult position. Catherine, who had been quietly observing the conversation while keeping her hand on Charlotte's shoulder, finally spoke up. It seems to me that Charlotte demonstrated exactly the values we've been trying to teach all our children. She saw someone in need, she responded with compassion, and she stood up for what she believed was right even when it was difficult. Her words carried special weight because Catherine had consistently been praised for her ability to connect with people from all backgrounds while maintaining her royal dignity. If anyone could speak to the balance between protocol and humanity, it was she. Charlotte looked up at her parents with eyes that showed both relief and continued determination. I know I'm supposed to follow the rules, she said, but some rules don't make sense if they stop us from helping people. James protects our family every day. Why shouldn't we protect him too when he needs it? The simple logic of her statement resonated with everyone present, including several staff members who were fighting back tears at the young princess's unwavering advocacy for their well-being and dignity. William turned to Queen Camilla with an expression that was respectful but firm. Camilla, I appreciate your commitment to royal protocol and I understand the importance of maintaining certain standards and procedures. However, I'm struggling to see how my daughter's compassionate response to a medical emergency represents the kind of breach that requires correction. The carefully worded statement was William's diplomatic way of saying that he supported Charlotte's actions while still acknowledging Camilla's position. It was a masterful example of the kind of leadership that had made him respected, both within and outside the royal family. Queen Camilla realized that she was facing not just a defiant 9-year-old, but an entire family whose values were fundamentally aligned with Charlotte's actions. The confrontation had evolved into something much more significant than a simple disciplinary matter. The resolution of the confrontation came in a way that surprised everyone involved. Queen Camilla, faced with the united support of William Catherine and the clear moral authority of Charlotte's position, made a decision that would be remembered as a defining moment in the evolution of modern royal protocol. Perhaps, Camilla said slowly, choosing her words carefully, this situation has revealed that some of our protocols deserve re-examination in light of changing times and values. The admission was difficult for her, but she recognized that stubbornly defending an indefensible position would only diminish her own authority and credibility. Charlotte's face lit up with surprise and hope. She had expected to be punished or at least severely lectured, not to hear Queen Camilla suggesting that the rules might actually need to change. The young princess had learned an important lesson about the power of standing up for one's convictions, even in the face of intimidating opposition. What I observed today, William said diplomatically, was my daughter embodying the values that Catherine and I have tried to instill in all our children. The idea that showing compassion and helping someone in distress could be considered inappropriate behavior is troubling to me. His words provided Queen Camilla with a face-saving way to adjust her position. You're absolutely right, William. Charlotte's instincts were correct and her actions were admirable. Perhaps what we need to examine is how we can maintain necessary security and operational procedures, while still allowing for the kind of human compassion that she demonstrated today. Catherine smiled at her daughter with obvious pride. Charlotte, you showed incredible courage today, not just in helping James but in standing up for what you believed was right even when it was difficult. That's exactly the kind of leader we hope you'll become. The praise from her mother meant everything to Charlotte, but what happened next surprised her even more. Queen Camilla approached her directly and, in front of all the assembled staff members, said, Princess Charlotte, I owe you an apology. Your actions today were motivated by compassion and good judgment, and I should have recognized that immediately, rather than focusing solely on protocol concerns. The apology sent a visible wave of emotion through the watching staff members. Many of them had worked in royal households for years without ever seeing such a direct acknowledgement of the human dignity and worth that Charlotte had been defending. James, who had been quietly observing the entire exchange, stepped forward with permission from Prince William. "Your Royal Highnesses," he said, addressing the entire group, "what happened today will be remembered by everyone who works here. Princess Charlotte didn't just help one guard, she showed all of us that we matter as people, not just as employees." His words captured the broader significance of the day's events. Charlotte's actions had indeed been about much more than one medical emergency. They had challenged fundamental assumptions about hierarchy, dignity, and the proper relationship between the royal family and those who serve them. Over the following weeks, the ripple effects of Charlotte's stand became apparent throughout the palace. New protocols were quietly established to ensure that guards and other staff members had regular break schedules and access to meals during long shifts. A confidential wellness program was implemented to allow staff members to seek medical attention without fear of losing their positions or being seen as weak. More significantly, Charlotte's actions had sparked conversations about the role of the modern monarchy that extended far beyond palace walls. News of the young princess who had defied protocol to help a sick guard spread through social media and traditional news outlets, with public reaction overwhelmingly positive. People saw in Charlotte's actions a reflection of the values they wanted their royal family to embody. The incident also strengthened the bond between Charlotte and her parents. William and Catherine recognized that their daughter possessed not just compassion, but the moral courage to act on her convictions even under pressure. They began including her more frequently in discussions about their charitable work and public responsibilities. Understanding that she had demonstrated remarkable maturity and judgment, James recovered completely from his hypoglycemic episode and returned to his duties with renewed energy and dedication. However, his relationship with the royal family had fundamentally changed. Charlotte made a point of greeting him personally whenever their paths crossed, and he became something of a symbol within the palace staff of the princess's commitment to treating everyone with dignity and respect. Queen Camilla, to her credit, took the lessons of that day to heart. She began making subtle changes to her own interactions with palace staff, remembering names, asking about families, and showing the kind of personal interest that had always come naturally to Charlotte. The confrontation had taught her that rigid adherence to tradition could sometimes conflict with the more fundamental royal duty of serving others with grace and compassion. As Charlotte grew older, the story of her stand in the palace garden became part of royal family lore. It was seen as a defining moment that revealed her character and foreshadowed the kind of leader she would become. The 9-year-old girl who had refused to walk away from someone in need had demonstrated that true royal behavior wasn't about maintaining distance and protocol, but about using one's position and influence to protect and serve others. The palace was indeed stunned by Princess Charlotte's actions that day, but not for the reasons Queen Camilla had initially feared. They were stunned by the moral clarity, courage, and compassion of a young girl who understood instinctively that helping others wasn't a breach of royal protocol. It was the very essence of what being royal should mean. Her defiance had not weakened the monarchy. It had strengthened it by reminding everyone of the values that truly matter. Years later, when Charlotte would face other challenges and difficult decisions, she would often think back to that morning in the garden when she chose compassion over compliance, courage over convenience. The lesson she learned that day, that doing what's right is more important than doing what's expected, would guide her throughout her life and shape her into the kind of leader the world desperately needed.